it was a hard road. It was tons of tears and tons of grief and like, what is happening and why can't I hold on to climbing? And, like everybody's going to think I'm a fraud. I think I'm a fraud. Like, why can't I just do what I do, And I think for all of us and probably a lot of your listeners, like being a person who's able to move their body, it's a very good way to process things. And when you're so injured that you can't actually move your body, it leaves you in a very dark place,
Hello and welcome to the Duffel Shuffle. I'm Adrian Ballinger, and we're here to discuss the world of climbing and skiing in all its forms through the eyes of mountain guides.
And I'm Sam Kiekefer. In each episode, we'll unpack exhilarating stories, share invaluable insights, and get up close and personal with some of the most experienced and passionate guides and athletes in the industry.
Whether you're a seasoned alpinist or a weekend warrior, the Duffel Shuffle is your ticket to the thrilling world of climbing, skiing, and mountaineering. Join us.
Welcome back. This is episode 27 of the Duffel Shuffle podcast. On today's episode, we've got a great interview with Beth Rodden. Beth is a climber. She's been a professional climber for 30 years now, and she's one of the names that just sticks around in the climbing community, and she's an incredible person and talks about her life and a new book that she wrote and published last year. So stay tuned for a great episode with Beth, but first, we'll catch up. Adrian, how's it going?
It's going great. On that final little ramp towards headed to Tibet, actually, Emily and Arrow leave in about 48 hours for a month in Spain. So mostly what I'm doing other than talking to you is like trying to suck up every minute with them.
And then you'll start training once they leave for Everest.
Exactly. I mean, that'll give me like 9 days, maybe 8 days.
That's all you need.
Should be good to go.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I'm sprinkling in a little training. Actually, I think I've officially switched from backcountry skiing to running, mostly just because time doesn't allow me to go out for 6 hours right now, and I can go out for 2 and get what feels like a full training workout. And I was doing like a 10-mile run yesterday, and I actually remember just feeling like we talk so much about the different ways to train for the big mountains, backcountry skiing, road cycling, swimming, playing tennis, whatever it might be. But like, if you can run, I think there is no exception, no alternative that is nearly as good as trail running with as much uphill as possible. If your knees allow it, I just do it and I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to feel in 2 weeks' time.
I agree. I think obviously the cardiovascular benefits are huge, but on top of that, like the little twitch muscles in your feet when you're trail running and you're on, tough trails, and the big muscles in your quads and your butt and your hamstrings, just everything. It really is the most efficient and effective way to train for really any mountain activities.
Hands down. And the fact you have to go down as well as up. Like,
yeah.
I'm as guilty as any other. Like a lot of times if there's a gondola, or I'll take the tram at Palisades down to skip the down. But then every time I go to a mountain and suffer on my descents and then don't recover as quickly and go back up, it's like, you got to run down as well as up.
It's actually funny. I mean, some of my days that I've been most sore following a training day have been because of a big descent. I think like those muscles get underutilized, and it's easy to say, oh, the down is easy. Certainly cardiovascularly, there's not much impact there, but the muscular impact of descending is super valuable. So I agree. Run down.
There's our training beta for the day.
Perfect.
Well, are you skiing still?
No, I mean, yes, a little bit. Here in the Tahoe area, like we haven't had a freeze or a really solid freeze in a little while. And so I think conditions are just not that conducive in the backcountry, and the resort skiing I'm sure is good. But to me, spring skiing is a little bit more about the party and less about the ski quality. And so I'm getting in some family time before I'll have some spring guiding, but that's not here in the Tahoe area.
Right on.
So, yeah. Well, you're off to the Himalaya soon. Any news out of the Himalaya that you think is notable as we kind of enter this Everest season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I kind of love this phase. It's like early season still, but news is trickling out about conditions in the mountains and what different expeditions are ramping up. And like, I'm a nerd for this, right? In the same way, like Emily Harrington is a nerd for like competition climbing and the Olympic rock climbing, scene. I'm a nerd for the Himalaya. And so, yeah, there's lots of news. things that I guess that I think of as notable. Of course, we're going to the north side of Everest. Everyone knows that. We don't go through the Khumbu Icefall or anything like that. But the south side is where a lot of the action will take place. People are expecting a record-breaking season. So let's say maybe 500, 600 foreign climbers, 800 local climbers. It's going to be a wild time. The key to that season really starting is the Icefall Doctors, a group of Sherpa, Nepali high-altitude workers whose dedicated job is opening the route through this chaotic icefall. Imagine a glacier acting like water, a running river. It gets pushed through this very steep constriction and just breaks, and it's very chaotic, and it's where a lot of the fatalities have been on the mountain over the past 80 years. And that route getting put in for the first time in a season is a huge milestone where people can begin climbing higher on the mountain. The Icefall Doctors completed that first route 3 days ago. They said it's quite challenging. It's a very dry season, not a lot of snow holding things together, a lot of ladders, and it sounds like they had to go pretty far, kind of lookers right towards Nuptse, which puts them under potential avalanche hazard. So the good news, the route's in, the mountain can start getting climbed. But potential downside, sounds like it's a hard route this year, but it's news. At the same time that Everest is just beginning, and I'm still 10 days out from even leaving home, the other big Himalayan news is first 8,000 meter summits of the year happened on Annapurna. Annapurna, because of where it sits in the range, the weather window, the good climbing window is actually earlier in the season. It's really early. It's now. First summits, great news. There are a lot of climbers trying to climb Annapurna at this new commercialization of the mountains. Annapurna is one of the ones that's seen that most dramatically, where it went from maybe there'd only be an expedition there every 3 or 4 years to now there was probably 12 expeditions with 50 foreign non-professional climbers on the mountain. Summits is the good news. The bad news is 2 Sherpa were killed in the icefall section of that mountain. So it also has a very active icefall between Camp 2 and Camp 3. And 2 Sherpa were killed in that area while most of the other climbers were above summiting. The incident, and of course, we'll get more details out of it. We'll hear more. It's hard to know what happened. Of course, it was an avalanche. It was some sort of serac fall that caused the fatality. Other people were caught but survived. Some people saw it. Climbers that had turned around and gone back to Camp 2 that day, failed on their summit push, saw it. So it's sad, of course. I think we have a risk in this sport of offloading a lot of the risk of the climbing to the local workers. And of course, that's part of what they accept when they take the work. But my mind immediately goes to was all the risk mitigated that could be mitigated whenever there's an all Sherpa accident without foreign climbers? Those are the things I want to learn more about. I don't think it's time to initially point fingers that anything was done wrong or unfairly. People will die in the mountains, but I definitely want to know more. And the other piece of this story that makes me want to know more is what we heard after the accident, that a number of the climbers who went to the summit either didn't have the mental state or didn't have the skills to then down climb through the icefall because the fixed ropes were taken out by the avalanche that killed the 2 Sherpa. And so a lot of climbers, we still don't know exactly how many, took helicopters from Camp 3 after their summits back to Kathmandu instead of down climbing the rest of the mountain. And for me, that raises all sorts of questions, did you climb the mountain if you didn't go from base camp to the top and back down to base camp? Does anyone care? I don't know. Maybe that's what you're going to ask me. Does anyone care? But what constitutes a climb of the mountain is one question for me. And then a second question for me is 2 people on someone's team just died. Were you there to support them? Were you there to go through the grief of the experience? This is what a team is. And I'm a little unclear of getting helied out from Camp 3, how that fits.
Yeah. And then what's happening with their equipment? Are they leaving it on the mountain? Are they expecting Sherpa workers to remove it for them? I mean, there's all sorts of questions there. I think I have 2 sides of the equation. One, I think that a climb is always a round trip. You can't call it a summit if you don't come home. And if you are expected to climb under your own power on the way up, why should you be able to take a shortcut on the way down? And so to me, it's not a round trip. It's not a full climb. It's not a success. At the same time, I kind of fall under the idea of style. There's no benchmark for style. There's no established style that is legitimate. And so whatever people want to do, it's kind of up to them. They're paying money, they're deciding to make these choices. And now certainly I don't necessarily think they should be claiming any records or go home and, scream to the, people that they climbed these mountains if they hellied off. But at the same time, like if you're truly in it for yourself and you want to make the choice to climb up the mountain, come down a little bit of the ways and then helly off and call it a successful climb, then I'm not going to be the one to tell you like you're wrong. So
I think, I feel like we spend a decent amount of our news segments talking about some of these thorny issues. And I think I hope our listeners enjoy it as much as I do. I think it's a really good question. I mean, I agree in the big picture. Let's get more people in the mountains. There's going to be lots of different ways of doing that, lots of different styles.
Xenon gas.
Like xenon and all the rest, spacesuits. And so in general, especially when I think of like kind of mountain tourism, I really agree with that. As long as we're not negatively affecting the environment, the communities we're passing through on the way to get there, or other people's experiences too greatly, like sure, noise of a heli or whatever. But like, I feel the same way about snowmobiles when we get all up in arms about snowmobiles. Like let everyone enjoy outside how they want to enjoy outside, provided it's not too obnoxious. And so generally I feel that way. At the same time, I do think if we are professionals in this sport, professional athletes, getting sponsorship, claiming records, like you said, writing articles about our ascents, then I think we as a community need to agree on a base level of like style or rules so that we can kind of level a playing field and compare our ascents and talk about them and things like that. That's where it kind of differentiates to me from like a hobby to a profession. And of course, there's a spectrum there. But I do think we should be debating kind of best practices amongst our climbs and coming to some level of agreement on those. And for me, certainly that best practice in this specific example is you must go to the top from the base camp and you must return to the base camp. And I think even like we're going to have an episode with Melissa on Not Read in a couple of weeks. And like, she's a great example. She was the first American woman to summit Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen. Well, actually, 18 years before her, an American woman did summit without supplemental oxygen, but she died on the descent. And while like, I don't want to take anything away from that family or that like story for those individuals, there is no one in the professional climbing community that says she is the first American woman to summit without supplemental oxygen because she didn't go all the way down. And there's a tragedy there that I'm not trying to make light of in any way. But so to me, that's something we should be able to agree on. And then I think there's all those recreational climbers, non-professional climbers that get to choose their style. But the majority of recreational climbers I work with and I know and my friends, like they want to emulate the best possible style. And perhaps they accept they might not meet that standard and there might be things they're willing to make exceptions to. But they go in wanting to meet that style. So I think that's the other important reason that we do have these conversations and we do set these guidelines is they do trickle throughout the sport.
Well, and then I think that this particular, call it incident, brings up another point of having the appropriate skill set. And so, part of why there were a number of heli trips off from Camp 3 is because the section of terrain was changed due to the avalanche, i.e. there were no fixed ropes, and now the group didn't have the skill set to travel through that terrain. And that kind of raises the question of like, should they be on the mountain in the first place if they don't have the skill set to travel through that terrain? Now, certainly there's always incidents where like something happens and a group needs to be rescued off of a mountain because, the terrain is altered, and that is one factor. But at the same time, like just not having fixed ropes is not necessarily a good reason, in my opinion, to not be able to travel through that terrain. So, if something happened and the route was truly impassable, that's a different conversation. But just not being comfortable in the terrain without a fixed line is, it kind of goes back to like, should they be on the mountain in the first place? And now I've just opened up a can of worms that we could talk for a full episode on.
That's you telling me, don't take the bait. Don't
take the bait. I don't have time.
But I mean, of course, I agree with you. It's not only about the skills of the individual, but it's also, I'm okay with non-professional climbers being on mountains like this, but then they need to have, like you said, this base level of skills to handle when the shit hits the fan. And they need to have mountain guides with them who can handle those incidences for where they acknowledge their lack of experience may be. So I don't expect every client to be able to down climb, hard ice or maybe even place like V-threads and really difficult terrain and things like that. But I certainly expect the team to be built in such a way that those skills are totally covered.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, that's going to cover it for our news section. Stay tuned for an awesome interview with Beth Rodden.
Was smiling because I've got so much more news and Sam's just not going to let me talk about it. Amazing episode coming up, and we'll just have to push the rest of our news to next episode. Welcome back to the Duffel Shuffle podcast. Today on the pod, we have Beth Rodden. Beth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I get the distinction of getting to do a little intro bio, and I'm not going to read the Wikipedia entry. I think everyone is very familiar with you, Beth, obviously as one of the just foremost American rock climbers, famous for everything from the second free ascent of the nose on El Cap in Yosemite to, I think, first American woman to climb 14B. And then when you put up Meltdown of 14C, maybe the hardest, we'll ask you these things so I don't get my facts wrong, but perhaps the hardest first ascent by a woman, is that at the time, maybe still?
Yeah, I have no idea.
See,
I'm not going to be helpful. I'm so sorry.
Go to the internet. Super rad accomplishments. Obviously, over 30 years in the sport is kind of a leading figure in American rock climbing. But, when I was talking to Sam about what I remember, what I think about you, Beth, like two very important personal stories. One, I might not be married to Emily Harrington today if you hadn't, provided her housing when she decided to come out to California and check out who this guy, Adrian, that she met on Everest was. And that housing, I think, gave her like a safe place for us to start hanging out. So that is very important to me and to where I am today. Thank you. We spent a lot of time in your house hanging out when you were probably like, I wish they'd just leave. And then the second story I was telling Sam was, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember a day, I think it was actually the first time I ever climbed with you in Yosemite, this place where you are just so comfortable. It's your home. And we ended up with a group of like pretty confident climbers soloing on Tenaya Peak, an easy afternoon solo before a thunderstorm rolled in. And we had one non-professional climber with us who actually ended up taking a bit of a fall and being pretty intimidated by the whole experience. And I just have this memory, like I saw the fall and was like, I went into full guide mode and was completely gripped in some ways and trying to figure out if we needed to go get a rope or what we needed to do. And Beth, you were just like so preternaturally calm, and you just came in and were like, here's what we're going to do. And you were just in your place and you just led her up the rest of this rock climb while me and Em were like pretending we could catch her if she fell. And I just remember like thinking like, I have no idea what's going on in Beth's brain or heart or stomach right now, but all she projects is confidence and calm in this place that she knows so well.
Oh, that's sweet of you. It's probably just because I had you and Emily below. It's like, they got it. We're good. We're all solid here.
We got it. It was a great memory. We got up before the storm came, more or less. Everyone got off and we had a fun day. So, Beth, thanks so much for being with us. And I know you're just back from a trip. I think that's why we ended up booking this podcast now. Where have you been? What have you been doing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm really excited to be here. We were over in France for 6 weeks. So we normally migrate over there for a chunk in the early spring. So that was kind of our annual migration, and now we're back.
And that was bouldering in Font?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how are conditions? How was the season?
It was lovely. Yeah. Last year it was quite warm and wet. And this year it seemed a little bit more, if there is a normal, it was a little bit more normal. So obviously, there's weather and stuff, but not as warm and lots of friends. And yeah, it was lovely as usual.
I find on climbing trips now, like sometimes me and Emily will both have goals, or we're trying to figure out how to like manage, both of us. And Arrow, our 2-year-old son, we're kind of like, whatever. He's fine. He's just going to fit in. Do you now on a trip like this, are you managing the goals? Like, do you have climbing goals? Does Randy have climbing goals? Does Theo have climbing goals? How did it all work?
Yeah, I feel like it's always been a bit of a management, even when our son was little. Like, we'd want to make sure that, it's like, oh, Stelios and Georgia are going here. And so I want to go play with them there. So, it's like you kind of just manage where people want to go. And it takes a little bit more logistics and planning out the day instead of, just sitting down at breakfast with Randy and being like, where do you want to go today? And managing that. So it's just like another piece in the puzzle. I'm always amazed when there's people with like 3 kids and how they do it. Cause there's like 5 people's, ideas and agendas to manage. So yeah, it's all right. I never feel like you perfect it, but you just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Were there any proud sends?
Randy did. I'll brag for Randy, even though he'll probably hate this. But Randy he did Karma, which is this really legendary Fred Nicole problem. And I think he first tried it like 25 years ago.
Wow.
And so, obviously he hasn't been working on it,
Sure.
every season for 25 years, but, he's come back to it a bit. So that was like super fun. But the best part was that his really good friend Paul has also been working on it for a while, and they did back-to-back sends. So it was pretty.
Same day.
Like literally, we had the whole area to ourselves, and then Paul did it, and then the next try Randy did it, and it was pretty special. So it was cool.
Wow, that is really, really fun. And did Theo send it next?
No. No.
He'd already sent it.
Yeah, exactly.
He warmed up on it.
After I had sent it.
Exactly. Oh, that's rad. And where are you now?
We're in Yosemite. So we're back here in Yosemite. Yeah. And it's a nice day here. Just like I'm sure it's a nice day where you guys are. California.
Today feels like in Tahoe, like I just got back from Vegas. So we've had like great desert time. We came back to Tahoe, and yesterday was like this nasty, rainy, kind of wanted to snow, super windy. I was like, ooh, I don't know. And then I woke up this morning and it was like, it's probably going to be 60 something degrees today. And the sun's out. It's like, oh, right. Tahoe in the spring.
Yeah, it's so nice. Will you guys ski now? Or are you kind of like, is that done? Even though you have snow, is it like kind of not fun, or will you still do it?
Definitely for Emily, skiing is done. She leaves for Spain in a few days, and it's just kind of in that like final big trip prep mode.
Yeah.
For me, like I'd love to do another 2 weeks of skiing and backcountry mostly to kind of like continue training for Everest. But mostly right now I'm like packing bags and looking at spreadsheets and, arguing about like permits and fun stuff like that.
All the joys.
But I bet, Sam, you still have a ski season ahead of you, right?
Yeah, but this is kind of that time of year where I'm like, all right, I'm not going to ski locally, and I'm going to go skiing in the Eastern Sierras and up on Shasta for work. But yeah, I'm pretty done local skiing. Maybe a little bit with my son.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. How old's your son?
He is 2 years, year and a half,
Awesome.
Little over a year and a half. So it's mostly me skiing, carrying him, but it's still fun.
Yeah, you're getting him out. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we were joking before you came on that, we should have warned you. This is actually going to be a parenting podcast. We're just going to spend the next hour talking about like how you brought Theo into the sport and things like that, because we have so much to learn. But before we get there, let's start with the book. So, Beth, you released almost a year ago your book, A Light Through the Cracks.
Yeah, it's out there. It's done. Thank goodness. I never thought it would have ever happened, but it actually happened.
Well, as someone who dreams one day in my 70s of maybe actually writing the book I've talked about for decades, could you tell us a little bit about the process of writing? I feel like maybe you and I even joked, like I feel like you've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process, why it was the right time?
Yeah, I mean, it took me forever. I feel like I had thought about writing a book for a long time. And then, gosh, I don't even know. I think it was actually on the trip that Emily was with us in France for a little bit. I had this Outside Magazine article that I worked on released. And I was able to use that as kind of like a pitch for publishers, and was able to get a book contract. And I don't know the grace that they showed me, because I think it was like 6 years, overdue or something like that. I know books and writing can be overdue, but I think that I was definitely an exceptional amount of time overdue. So yeah, the process for me, let's see where to begin. It was very slow. The thing that I really liked the best about it, and that surprised me, is I kind of always thought like writing a book was this very solitary thing. You like go into a room or a cabin in the woods and you come out X amount of months later with this like book and this artistic thing that you've been working on. But I really love collaboration. And so I was able to work with two people a lot, like editors that were it was awesome. Actually, I loved that. Probably how you guys like doing the podcast together. It's like you get to bounce ideas off of each other. Somebody has a different take on it and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. So I really loved that with Eva and Mark. I thought that was really amazing. But it was just pretty slow, and they were able to really help me figure out like which stories to put in the book. And then I would go off and kind of like, write a bunch and then come back and we would, all talk about it together. So I really liked that part of it. I think I would still be working on it if it wasn't for them. And it would probably be like 7,000 pages long because I tend to just like ramble. So that was a surprising, like a lovely part of it.
And Beth, the book is really chronological. Did you write it in chronological order, or did you kind of bounce around a lot and piece things together?
That's a great question. I feel like the book started from I'm sure I could find the doc and see how many pages it was, but like hundreds of pages in a Google Doc of just like journaling. And sometimes like the journal's entries would just be like a sentence here or there, like that meant something to me. Sometimes they would be pages and pages and pages. So from those journal entries, they definitely weren't chronological. But then going and putting like the pieces together, it was definitely like part one, like the Kyrgyzstan era, like my 20s was written first. And then like part two was written next, and then part three. And obviously like we had parts of 2 and 3 while one wasn't finished, just because it was like, oh, this will tie back to this type of thing. But as the arc went through time, it was like 1 was finished first, 2 was finished second, and 3 was finished third.
Very cool. The whole process, I think, is just fascinating. And I mean, 6 years, 7 years is a fast amount of time to write a book of your whole life, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, when you put it that way, yeah, it definitely didn't feel fast in any stretch of the imagination when it was happening.
I bet it didn't. And when you mentioned journal entries, are you saying, did you have journals from all of those years?
Like I have journals from when like I feel like I didn't start journaling until I started climbing. So I definitely have like actual journals. And I went back and read some of them. But no, it was more like even before the Outside Magazine article, like thinking about writing this Outside Magazine article and thinking about the book after, I would just like have ideas. And I'd be like, oh, this is something that I'd like to talk about maybe. And so then I would go and I would jot it down. Or it'd be like, oh, I have this. A lot of it honestly stemmed from therapy sessions around Kyrgyzstan. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is like really fascinating. And so I would come home from a therapy session and I would just like write a bunch in this Google Doc. So it wasn't like an actual journal, even though I did have those. But I didn't actually write a ton about my before Kyrgyzstan. So it was basically from when I was 19 or 20 on. Like there's like a little bit of childhood and early comps, or early climbing, but not much. And so I didn't really need to reference those journals that much.
Yeah. And we were joking before you came on. We're now referencing Kyrgyzstan a lot in this story. Is there a new generation of climbers that you meet now at events, at gyms, at things like that have no idea what we're talking about right now? Or is it still probably just a story throughout the... Like, is it just such a known story?
No, I think it's probably not not known a ton at all. And I guess if for your listeners, I'm happy to give like the 2-minute version of it if that would be helpful. But I definitely think I wouldn't know why people would know it other than like if they read the book or read Greg's book or something like that.
But to me, like growing up in the sport, like it's just this like, it's like it's not the Bible. That's a terrible example, but it's just like part of the apocrypha of climbing. Like it's such a moment in time when it happened, and it felt like it just took over all the media and everything, and rightfully so. And for years, I feel like it was this really base story that, both you and Tommy came out of it and performed at such high levels in different ways and had different challenges and approaches to it, which you talk about in your book. But there was clearly that moment in time, like, was a large part of forming your careers.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge pivot point in life. It was like, irregardless of climbing or whatnot, I think it was this massive, fork in the road, or that's probably not the best example, but just a huge point that really shaped, how I viewed the world, how I viewed myself, how I viewed relationships with people. When you're 20 years old, at least when I was 20 years old, I definitely felt like I had it all figured out. But I mean, your like brain isn't fully developed yet. And so to have such a traumatic event happen at a pretty darn early young age, it's really interesting and fascinating to me now that I didn't think that it changed me back then, that I felt like, oh, it's just fine. But I also think that's a product of the climbing culture at the time and like my social circle at the time as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's do the 1 minute version, the 2 minute version of the story, if that's comfortable enough.
No, it's fine.
For our listeners. Tell us about Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah. So I'll try and give a very short bookended version. We went on a climbing expedition to the Karasu Valley in Kyrgyzstan. And it's this amazing, beautiful place, just absolutely gorgeous. You guys were in the neighboring Aksu, right?
That's right.
And so, I always likened it to like an alpine Yosemite Valley, which is just it's gorgeous. So as climbers, we were in heaven. We were supposed to be there for like, I don't even know, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. And a couple weeks into our trip, we were on a climb, sleeping in portaledges, and we were shot at and told to come down. And then we were held hostage for 6 days. And during those days, the first day we went through this massive battle between the rebels and the Kyrgyzstan military, where there's like mortars flying and, people died and all that sort of thing. And the next 6 days we were just, tromped around the mountains. It's 11 or 12,000 feet. And all we had on was like what I'm wearing now, just like a light jacket and pants. So it was freezing. We moved at dark. We had hardly any food. And at the end of that time, we were left with 2 captors. And one of them was going to go back and get some food and supplies at our camp because we had just almost gone in a circle. So we were left with 1 captor. And we were supposed to meet the other one on the top of this ridge. And climbing up the ridge was something that like any of us, like you wouldn't think about, right? It's like grassy ledge, 5-1, 5-2, grassy ledge, 5-1, 5-2. And so we were all very comfortable, the 4 of us, and our captor was just, totally deer in headlights, not knowing how to do this. And the entire time, the boys had been talking about trying to escape, and they thought that this was the most opportune time that we were going to get. And so Tommy pushed him off the top of the ridge and we were able to run down to safety to this Kyrgyzstan military. I mean, you say military base, but it's basically like, small rock hut. And, right. And then we were, taken from one military base to the next, and eventually to the United States Embassy and home. So, yeah, so it was
and you were 20.
Whirlwind. I was newly 20. I think I was 20 and 1 month. So.
And had you done a lot of international travel at that point? Or?
The year prior, I had gone to Madagascar. And so that was and then of course I had gone to Europe a bunch, but not any kind of more difficult travel. But I had gone to Madagascar the year prior.
You did a fantastic job just keeping that to 90 seconds. But I guess one thing for people who haven't read the book yet, I mean, the Kyrgyzstan story is so powerfully told throughout your book and sort of intertwined with your period of after Kyrgyzstan and what that all meant and what you went through. But I think that's an easy place to kind of enter the book, is like, this story is so fucking wild and powerful and hard to imagine as a group of essentially kids going through something like that from our, or at least my relatively middle-class American background. It's hard to imagine how you survive and shift into that mode.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it now, what is it? It's like almost 25 years later. And especially thinking about it like from my parents' perspective, right? Because here I was this kid who grew up in the gym, right? And then who started sport climbing outside. And then, just decided to go on this trip. And it's interesting because I think it was so crazy, right? It was so something you just hear about in movies or in magazines, and then to have it happen. And then I do think, honestly, and this is no blame or whatever, it's just a product of the time, that the climbing community at the time, how we were celebrated, how we were just expected to move on, so quickly, like on to the next one. Just in our community, how kind of like surviving death is more celebrated than maybe like doing a hard climb or something like that. I think that, and I was so entrenched, I wanted to be this professional climber so bad that I was like, oh yeah, this is the Kool-Aid we're all drinking. That I think that really like steered how I tried to heal from it, and to just like shove it away and act like it made me better and stronger. And, now I think it would be so different, if this happened to somebody in 2025 versus 2000.
Absolutely. I do feel like we as a sport, I think, are trying to face the challenges and the things we go through and the trauma that some of our experiences may leave on us, and trying to be more open to speak to that. But I think it's things like your book and your willingness to talk about these hard things. And you've been doing that for years, even before the book came out, that I hope is helping to move us in those directions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely see it. And, I'm only one person in the community, but I definitely see that the community is totally changing and shifting. And so that's great to see,
Absolutely. I think it's really important. I think that I obviously believe these sports have an incredible power to them on our lives and on the community. And like, I'm so proud to be a part of it. At the same time, I think that, obviously there's a lot of potential like downsides to these really powerful experiences that we might have, good, bad, unexpected, and certainly around death. That's something that we obviously deal with because of being mountain guides, because of being in kind of higher risk environments, and especially on a lot of sort of the bigger mountains that we climb and play on. So, I'm interested in your book. You spend quite a bit of time kind of talking about this next decade, right? So you came home, and the next decade, if I'm right, is you were accomplishing in the sport at the very highest level in Yosemite, free climb routes on El Cap, things like this. And so you were able to find ways to perform at a really high level. But it was also during that period where you were not going through the work that you obviously at some point needed to do to get healthy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally right. So I feel like my 20s were basically, shove Kyrgyzstan down as far as I could and cover it with accomplishment and just rinse and repeat, right? And honestly, like it worked pretty darn well for a long time, right? It was like this achievement that I had, that Tommy and I had as a couple, that we had, the support that we had for in each other's individual careers. Like when I look back at it now, I'm like, wow, it's like kind of unmatched, It was just like every season, doing something really to push the sport forward, not just like something personally fulfilling that we wanted to do, but it like literally it was like the next step to push the sport forward. And so now I look back, I'm like, like, wow, that definitely worked for a clip of time there. And, it's definitely like, it was a thing that worked, and obviously it wasn't sustainable, but I don't look back on it and resent that time at all. It was like, I was in my early 20s, and like, that's what I was able to do at that point. And, like when we first came home, we did go to like a therapist, and I remember Tommy being like, this is stupid. And I was like, yeah, this is stupid, and then I did have nightmares. And so I went to another therapist, and but I just like never was bought in. Right. I was just like, just help me get rid of these nightmares. I just need to be able to sleep through the night. And so she did that. And then I was like, sweet. I'm done. Like, check,
right. Short-term fix, go back to climbing.
Yeah, exactly. Boom. Let's do this. And yeah, so it worked for a long time. And I'm like, I definitely don't resent any of that time. Like, it's what happened. And like, I am who I am partly because of that time. And it's like, it is impressive what Tommy and I were able to do.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting to think you had all these experiences kind of bottled up for that decade, and that bottle, the pressure in that bottle seemed to provide a lot of success. And do you ever wonder if you would have emptied that bottle earlier on in your career, if your success would have been different or less powerful or more powerful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I did for a long time wonder that type of thing, right? Like, I'm definitely one of those like circular thinkers. I'm like, oh, what if we revisit this and this? And I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Like, if I had I don't know, started climbing a week later, or I met somebody different, or, like,
right.
who knows? Like, I think there's a million forks in every lifetime, and you take what you take. And I'm definitely one of those people that historically can go back and beat myself up on decisions I've made. So yeah, like, would it have been nicer to work on my PTSD earlier? Sure. Right. But did I? know? And did it happen when it happened? And that's okay. Yeah. And I feel like obviously it's easy to go through life and look at it with a fine tooth comb and hope, nitpick what you could have done better. But yeah, I feel like, I don't remember if I talked about this in the book or not, but I did always think like, oh, maybe I should have, like, Tommy and I should have stayed together for one more season, because I would have done Magic Line, like, oh, and what if we'd stayed together one more season, then would we have done the Zodiac? Or, it's just like, of course, like, I'm sure I could definitely draw that line. And I remember having those thoughts, but I'm like, that's clearly not the growth you need right now. Like,
right.
you've checked the climbing box, like something else needs to happen in your life,
Do you remember, was it conscious at the time that you were on a completely unsustainable path and you had to make this dramatic shift? Or is that more looking from Pat beyond?
Yeah, no, like, consciously at the time, no. Right. Like, I think the only thing that I can think about and pinpoint is building the house, because it was like this first really big departure from climbing. And so for your listeners, like, Tommy and I decided to build our own house partway through our relationship. Like, I think we had just done the Freed the Nose, and we had this like plot of land near Yosemite. And so we decided to build our own house. And it's not like a tiny cabin. It's like an actual, like 2,000 square foot house, and we didn't know what we were doing. So I think
this is my total nightmare. I don't
totally
want to build a piece of IKEA furniture. Like, I read the book, I was like, oh, Kyrgyzstan's easy. Nose, easy. Building a house, forget it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, this is my dream.
I know. It's such a polarizing thing. I come across so many people who are like, what a dream to build your own house. I'm like, oh God, like, to hang a picture, I will hire someone now.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, I don't want to
deal with it. But you can say that. Adrian, on the other hand.
I haven't earned the right to hire someone to hang a photo.
No, you're just wise. You just know.
Just know.
But yeah, I think building the house was the first time where I was like, oh, maybe this isn't right, actually. Like, maybe this isn't. It was the first time because I think it was our departure from climbing. And I was like, I don't like this. Like, and granted, building a house is super stressful. So, and then after the house, we kind of got back into it, and I was like, okay, we're getting back into a rhythm. But I feel like it was like one of the first cracks that I actually acknowledged, right, in our relationship. Because when I think of our relationship, I don't think about it as like our marriage and then climbing. It was just like all one, right? And so I feel like that was the first crack that I was like, this doesn't feel very good at all,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And so then we got back to it a little bit, but I think after that, I was always maybe like a little bit more noticing of anything else that was bubbling up. Whereas before I would just shove it down. And so I noticed a lot more things after that maybe I would have just ignored before.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Alpenglow Expeditions, a Tahoe-based guide company with an international reputation. In its 20th year of operations, Alpenglow leads the highest quality expeditions in some of the world's greatest mountain ranges, from California's High Sierra to the rugged Himalaya. Alpenglow runs more than 40 international expeditions per year, as well as offering a full menu of guided ski and climbing courses throughout California. Join us and experience the Alpenglow difference. Obviously, climbing has presented these challenges that you speak really openly about, from obviously PTSD from Kyrgyzstan, but also to, body image and eating disorder and other things that you are putting yourself through to excel at this level. And yet you always stuck with it. I think I read somewhere, you're a 30-year climber and you hope to climb for 30 years more. Could you speak a little bit to why did you never quit?
That's a great question. After my divorce, my body totally started breaking down. And I'm sure people can be like, oh, it's a manifestation of like what your emotional, state was. And like, I'm sure like everything's tied together. So I'm sure there's things you can draw, but also, like, I also think some people are just built differently, and I abused my body for a real long time. And so maybe it's not as durable as others. Like it just is what it is. I've spent a lot of time worrying about that. And now I'm just like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But after my divorce, when I went from like, 14 plus climbing and cascaded to be like barely being able to climb 5'6". I think that's like the first time I met you climbing in City of Rocks. Like
City of Rocks.
I was maybe climbing 5'8".
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
Like
me too. It was great. I was like, just back from Everest. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah. But like that was a pretty hard descent for me, going from the top down. And so during that time, and it wasn't like this joyous like thing, joyous ride down. It was like, It was a hard road. It was tons of tears and tons of grief and like, what is happening and why can't I hold on to climbing? And, like everybody's going to think I'm a fraud. I think I'm a fraud. Like, why can't I just do what I do, And I think for all of us and probably a lot of your listeners, like being a person who's able to move their body, it's a very good way to process things. And when you're so injured that you can't actually move your body, it leaves you in a very dark place,
Mm-hmm.
So I went through those few years after my divorce, like totally questioning climbing. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like there's all this grief. There's all this anguish. Like I should just move, like I should go back to college. I should get a job somewhere. Like this is not worth it. Plus like the way my marriage ended, I felt like kind of a black sheep in the community.
Sure.
And so I was real close to quitting so many times. But then like I started climbing with people who weren't in our sphere, right? Who like literally were just climbers because it was so fun for them. Like
this is the Bay Area crew, right? Is that
and my neighbors up here in Yosemite mainly.
Okay.
Yeah, so they literally have jobs and they literally go climbing because it's fun.
Amazing.
And so
it's so weird to us, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I go climbing with Tom and Teresa. And we'd climb like 5'6", and I'm like, man, this is kind of amazing. Like, why have I been on El Cap for a decade? Like, geez Louise, Yosemite can be fun. And so I think it was that period of like 3 years or 4 years of just like totally reestablishing my relationship with climbing and just being like, I really like it, And now like I go to Font and like a lot of the years I'm injured and can't climb more than V2, and it's not like I'm sad about it, like, yeah, of course I'd love to climb that hard thing over there, but I don't let that ruin my day anymore. I let it ruin my day for a while, but not anymore.
For a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's so important to like refine that love or to figure out what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it could be really hard. I mean, I think about it in my mountain climbing. Like I definitely go through these phases where it's such a job or it's so focused on the end goal. And I think COVID helped me in some ways where I think I was getting quite kind of jaded or like just kind of blocked. It's just what I did. I just went and did it 7 months a year, 8 months a year, whatever it was. And then I was forced to stop and not have it for a couple of years. And it kind of redefined this like relationship for me. And the truth is I do it a lot less now, right? My sort of high-end mountain stuff. But like when I do it, I'm so darn excited to go and do it. And I don't know whether I would have found that myself. Like I didn't come to that point where you kind of made a decision. You were like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
I think I needed something external to be like, hit me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, for me, it was the injuries, and for you, it's COVID. So it's like, if my body hadn't started breaking down, I would just be like, this is what I do, put nose to the grindstone, send the hard roots, and rinse and repeat. But so I think it takes a jolt for a lot of people,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, Beth, now what grades are you climbing average, and how often are you climbing? I mean, it sounds like your relationship with climbing has really had like a refresh and you just truly enjoy it. And what does that mean? What does that look like in your life today?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm never going to be one of those people who doesn't have a goal. Like I just like it, right? So it's not like I don't have goals. I feel like I always have goals. It's just some days and some seasons and whatever those goals are different. And so like this year in France, I had a pretty bad pelvic floor injury last year. So when we went last year, like I couldn't even carry my backpack. Like my friends were carrying my backpack for me and I couldn't fall at all. So like last year, I only did things that I couldn't fall on, right? And or I could like down climb on. And so this year I can fall a little bit more, still not like, I still definitely can't fall that much. So the grades vary. I mean, I feel like I don't even know. I just go out and I climb now. I climbed some sevens when I was there. A few sevens, which is always nice. And then, but a lot of times I'll just go do like a circuit, which is also nice. I feel like now with my body, I need to give it more rest than I used to. Right. And I feel like that's just part of it and that's okay. Yeah. So for climbing, I climb, if I'm healthy, I'm like a day on, day offer. So I don't know what that equals, like 3 to 4 days a week, depending on the week, I guess.
You're still way ahead of the curve. We were just down in Vegas. We were hanging out with a bunch of pro climbers, and actually it was Joe Kinder who said it first, but then a bunch of us were like, oh, someone said it. Like I'm a day on, 2 days off if I actually want to climb anywhere close to my like limit working on a project. And obviously I'm not even in the elite grades, but like I try to climb at my limit. And yeah, at this point, if I don't rest 2 full days, I'm definitely not performing.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I feel like I used to be the inverse, like 2 days on, 1 day off. And so,
yeah, me too.
Yeah. And so a lot of times, like I'll take 2 or 3 days off if I'm pooped, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It's okay. Like
it's totally okay.
Yeah.
Sam's in his 20s. He can climb like every day on, you know?
You're good.
No, I'm like a couple months off, climb a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I think it's cool, Beth. I mean, I think, climbing is such a grade chasing sport. And whether you're an elite climber or you're just starting out in the gym, there's this part in every human being that's like, I just want to keep progressing higher and higher and higher. And oftentimes we lose the joy for climbing a V1 or a V2 or a V3 or whatever, just because it's creative or fun or the movements are unique, because we're always just pushing higher and harder. And so It's cool that you've really just found the joy in moving your body in the, vertical world.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. And I do love climbing my hardest. It's just that changes. Yeah. It's not just fixed at like 514 plus anymore. It just like varies on where I am that season. So it's like, I'm happy to push myself as hard as I can. And then,
right. Yeah, that's not going away. That desire to push yourself, right? No. But it's like acknowledging where that does change through life and through seasons and injuries and all those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, like, I don't know, when you're on your book tour or giving presentations, like, I don't know how much you love giving advice, but like when you're seeing the next generation, I mean, eventually Theo's, I think he's 11 or 12 now. Like 10. 10. Yeah. So he's getting there. But like, also like when you meet young climbers who want to perform at the highest end of the sport, but also maybe look to your story like, wow, is there a healthier way to do it? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible to be at the upper echelons of the sport and be healthy? What do you think about?
Actually, that's a really good question. I have to say I'm quite encouraged, like hanging out with younger generations. And like, obviously not children, like we're talking about, like, right. But our friends like Aiden and Katie have been spending a lot of time here in Yosemite, and they're in their 20s, right? Mm-hmm. And they're obviously at the top of the sport. And just seeing their relationship with climbing and like with their peers and stuff. And I'm sure like Emily can speak to this. Like we weren't necessarily exactly in the same generation, but like pretty close. Like it just, like there was so much underlying competitiveness, right? And like something you didn't really say between each other. And like the way that the younger generation like openly actually truly supports each other is pretty impressive. And you see it across sports, right? Like in the Tour de France, somebody, I forget if it was last year or the year before, but like Pogačar and I forget the other guy's name, they're going down and the guy behind, like he skidded out on like it and the guy waited for him.
Wow.
Whereas, and I remember like listening to the Lance Armstrong podcast, like
would have run over him.
Yeah. Like Lance Armstrong's like, what the hell are you doing? Like time to like get some space between you, you know? And so I am encouraged, right? Like within just how they approach it is like maybe not as like all encompassing and all as important, right? And obviously they still have drive because they're still pushing the sport forward. You know, it's not like they're repeating things, but just like with a smile and in a kinder way. They're actually like pushing the sport forward. And then they have this like a little bit, seems like broader view of being a little bit more whole of a person. And the end goal isn't just to the death type of thing. So I'm totally encouraged, like seeing the next generations, honestly.
That's great. I mean, I felt the same way in Yosemite, like slightly different messages I was taking, but this past season in Yosemite, I happened to just get to see and hang out some with like, the 20s, you know? And like, I was like, wow, like I feel confidence. The sport looks great.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly why, but I was just like, the sport is in good hands. So it's really fun to hear you say that as well. Do you think is it a change in the industry? Like there's just, the pie is bigger, like from a sponsorship and things like that? Or is it a change in humanity that climbers are realizing we just need to be better because look what's going on around us? Or do you have any theories?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I have theories. I think maybe, obviously like the pie's bigger, right? Like it's not like at least for when I was growing up in the sport, like the competitiveness between women was just really bad because, you know, there was like a slot for one on an athlete team or something like that. So obviously like the pie is bigger, but I don't know, maybe just like humanity's doing a better job at like, you know, every generation tries to get a little kinder and, you know, think about the world in a little bit broader sense instead of just so narrow in front of yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we should ask them, like, why are you guys so nice? And you can still send really hard.
You're not meant to be smiling right now.
Exactly. Doesn't this suck?
And Beth, you know, you've been a fixture in the Valley for so long and you live in Yosemite. What does your time in the Valley look like? Do you feel like you're kind of in this mentor role with this younger generation as they come through the Valley season by season?
I don't think I ever feel like I wear that hat. I don't like consciously wear that hat. I'm not like, I'm going to mentor you. Do I like to hang out with them and like share a day at the boulders or at the crag or whatever, or share a rope with him? Yeah. Like it's super fun, right? Who doesn't like to spend their days with nice people? But and like if you can hang out and share a love of the place and the sport, like no better place to do that.
So you are a mentor. You just don't know.
No, I don't. I'm just Beth.
The hat just doesn't say mentor.
I'm just Beth.
Just Beth.
Yeah.
And like I did want to talk, obviously we both have 2-year-olds. We're thinking about bringing them into skiing and climbing and all these different things that we love. It seems like Theo has really found his own way into this sport and is having a lot of fun with it. The last time we were at your house, like he brought us down to the basement to show us his favorite pairs of climbing shoes from like memorable ascents, and he saved every pair of shoes and things like that. And it's just like his joy was just shining through. But can you just like tell us a little bit about how you approached climbing with him? I mean, you live in like the center of the climbing world. You and Randy are both incredible climbers, and obviously it encompasses a lot of your life. How'd you do it so right? No, what did it look like, and what does it look like today?
I feel like it's just, honestly, I wish I could give a nugget, like a gold nugget, but I don't think I have one, honestly. I think every kid is so different, and every parent is so different, and every situation is so different. Like we have friends who I'm like, man, they are nailing parenting. And then like something different happens, their kid hates the thing that they love or whatever. And, I even think of it, I'm like, my dad was really into kayaking at some point, and I was like, well, I just don't actually like kayaking,
Yep.
And so I don't have any. I'm so sorry. I don't have anything. Every kid is. I think when I was started, I was like, oh, we're going to do it this way and this, and I don't know. I feel like I'm always challenged by parenting. I feel like it's just always changing, and I'm always on my toes, and I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I think we're done. And then something else changes, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So
totally. I mean, I think that if I've learned anything so far, it is like just when I feel like I'm starting to nail something, our kid just completely changes, and you're like, what? But maybe it's a good thing. We're never bored. I am not bored of parenting.
No, it's never the same thing. Like, I know it. And I feel like all of my friends and me that we have the same thing. It's like your kid will like start liking a food. So you just like stock your pantry with that food. And then like literally the next day they're like, nah, and you're just like, what the hell am I going to do with all of this like bagged olives that I bought? You know, you're just like,
they
great.
will never eat again.
Never eat again.
Right. And we talk quite a bit about risk on this podcast. And, you know, we think a lot about risk in our lives and as mountain guides and in the different types of climbing we do. And as you're bringing Theo up in this sport, I imagine like you're starting to see him thinking about risk or taking risk or not thinking about risk. Like, how has that process been for you, like as a mom and as a climber, and kind of understanding the risks of our sport, whether it's falling off a big boulder or going on multi-pitch climbs, things like that? Like, is that something you're starting to have to really think about?
Yeah, I feel like it's something probably, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty risk averse person. Like I'm a like worst case scenario type of person ever since Kyrgyzstan.
Right.
So I don't know, like, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I feel like even, you know, like Randy used to race car drive and he was like, let's get Theo into racing cars. And I'm like,
yes,
what?
I want to talk to Randy about
that.
Yeah,
exactly. And, you know, like motorcycles. And also I just feel like at some point, I don't know, like I am a tight grip of control person by nature. And so it's something that I have to work on. It doesn't mean like I just let go fully, you know, but yeah, I don't have an answer. I'm sure I'm messing it up. I
Beth,
really don't know.
You're here to give us answers.
I got nothing for you guys. We should get a parenting expert on. If you guys get a parenting expert on, can you invite me? Because I'll have all these questions for them. You're like, okay, how are we messing up here?
Right.
What are the long-term consequences of what we're doing?
And if they're honest, they probably tell us the same thing. They have no clue and they're hanging on by their fingernails.
Exactly. So I feel like I'm, no idea.
Is there a second book in the works?
No. I mean, it's funny. So many people ask me that. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. That was like 40 years, right? And so I mean, I didn't write about 40, like every year, but I'm just like, I think I've said a lot of what I wanted to say. So maybe like in 40 years, I'll be like, I have something else to say, but right now I'm like,
book.
That's what I was going to say. She's actually saving all the nuggets for book number 2.
They're in her journal. That's just an ongoing
Google Doc. Yeah. No, that's one thing. I definitely don't have any spare time to journal at this point in my life. Yeah, I don't know. Zero plans whatsoever right now. I literally cannot imagine ever writing a book again.
Yeah.
Like it just, no.
But book number 1, you wrote it like, did you write it because the world needed it? Because you needed it? Both? Like when you did decide to write it, you did the Outside Magazine article, you saw there was something there. Like, why did you need to write it?
I think I wrote it because I needed it when I was younger at different points in my life. Right? And so that's why I wrote it.
Awesome. Well, I've had so many conversations about it over the past year with climbers and friends. I think it's been very widely read, and so many people took different things out of it, right? Like, which has been really neat to see. Like, maybe it's to your point, like needing it at different points in life, like different pieces of the book have really like connected with different people. And I think that's part of what makes it so special. So thanks for putting it out there.
Well, thank you for taking the time to read it. Yeah.
And listen to it. You narrated it as well, which was an awesome, nice touch.
Yeah, no, it was a treat, honestly, to be able to do that. It was such a fun, different experience that I, won't be able to do again. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, so certainly for our listeners that haven't read or listened to it yet, A Light Through the Cracks, in our show notes, we'll have links and all that fun stuff. But it's a fantastic read with, I think, a lot of potential learning in there.
Beth, you're based in Yosemite now, and what is it like living in Yosemite and raising a child, aside from the climbing aspect of it, but from a social standpoint and a resources standpoint? How has that been, raising a child in Yosemite?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just like always, I'm sure there's like pluses and minuses, right? I'm a pretty big introvert. Like I like my people, but like to make new friends is pretty hard for me. It's just, it takes effort, right? To make new friends. And the one thing I've learned about the community here is the Park Service is a lot like the military. It's very transient. So like every couple years, like people just move and move. And so that's been a hard thing for me, is that it's I would like to live and raise our family and retire like all with the same. That's just comfort to me. It's like comfortable, it's like putting on an old pair of jeans or something like that. And that's not the case in this community. So that's been pretty hard. On the plus side, it makes me make new friends every couple of years, and so like some more like solid stationary friends would be great. But if not, I make new friends. And as far as the climbing community goes, it's like feast or famine, which is like lovely, but also completely overwhelming, right? It's like everybody.
We all come in for a few weeks, right? We're like,
everyone is here, and then no one is here. And so it's just like really frantic for like 3 weeks. And then you're just like, I wish we could have somebody over for dinner, type of thing. So it's just like, it's a little bit different of a community than like how I grew up, where, I grew up in Davis, and like my friends' parents still live there, and a lot of my friends that I grew up with moved back to raise their kids there. And like my parents still live there. My brother lives there and is raising his family. So it's just like, it's a little bit different, but also like I'm a hermit. So, we just adopted a new dog, and I'm like, I'm good. I just need my dog and a friend, and we're good.
There's a new dog. Puppy or not puppy? Or?
No, he's 5, and he had a pretty rough life. So we're trying to show him the joy in life again. But so
Rhodesian?
Always. There's no other option with Randy. So he's like a horse. He's like a small horse. He's the biggest dog I've ever seen.
Wow. Can't wait to meet him.
Yeah. So anyways, it's like Yosemite, it's awesome. Obviously, I have the luxury of choosing where I live in some regard, right? Like, and so I'm still here, and it's a pretty magical place, and for a lot of reasons. And the people that are here, even if they're here only for a couple of years, it's pretty awesome. So can't complain.
And do you have any other climbing trips planned this year?
We're actually going to New Zealand in mid-June. Again, this will happen to you as your children get older. You don't have a single ounce of memory. Like literally bought the plane tickets a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I don't actually know when we're going. I'm going down for this book festival, and then we're making a little bouldering trip out of it. So there you go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
One of the places I haven't been yet, but would love to go and explore.
Yeah, same. I've never been. It's been on my list.
Seems magical.
I'll let you know how it is.
Fantastic. Well, we always finish with 2 questions, Beth, that we ask every guest. And I'm trying to remember what the first one is.
The first one is, we want to hear your best Duffel Shuffle story. You've traveled around the world in climbing and book tours as well. What's the best story that you have of losing duffel bags or traveling with well too many duffel bags?
God, I feel like traveling with a child is just about as heavy and slow as you can get. But I do think I remember one time fully forgetting the diapers, and that was a very memorable time. Yeah, just whoosh. Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
Hopefully you were going somewhere with a good diaper option.
I mean, it was like we had like a several hour like this is gonna suck moment, but then we got there. But still, you're just like, oh, I remember exactly where I left the diaper bag.
The diapers.
Yeah, it's right there by the door, perfectly packed, and you just like walk right on by. So that was a memorable one. Yeah.
Well, maybe that answers the next question, but hopefully not anymore since Theo's 10. But so when you pack for this next trip, New Zealand or wherever it might be, what is the very first thing or that crucial thing that you would never travel or go on a trip without?
Earplugs.
Earplugs.
It's a good one. We haven't had that yet.
Silence. Silence is golden.
Do you have like a brand that you prefer?
Just the foam cheap pharmacy earplugs.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Silence.
You're speaking Emily Harrington's language right now. I'm pretty sure she used to only wear them at night. Now I think she might wear them, 20 hours a day when I'm around.
Oh yeah. It's just like, if you can just have a bit of time, I always used to have music playing. And now when anybody puts music on, I'm like that much more grumpy. I'm just like, can we just have quiet? Like, anybody just want to be quiet right now?
I love it. Yep, that's a first. I like it.
There you go.
Earplugs. Putting on my packing list.
Yeah, they're priceless.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great having you, and your book was a pleasure to listen to and pleasure to read, according to Adrian. So thank you for taking the time to write that and chat with us today.
Yeah, thanks you guys. Yeah, always fun to chat.
Thanks, Beth. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for listening to the Duffel Shuffle podcast. You can follow along on Instagram, where we post our favorite clips from each episode, as well as more about the world of climbing, skiing, and mountaineering. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Catch you next time, and until then, we hope you enjoy some time outside.